Good evening, and welcome to the North Georgia GMRS Regional Net. Tonight I'll be working off of the flagship 675 machine, but we will be networked in with the following repeaters: Blue Ridge, Lookout Mountain, Somerville, Noonan, McDonough, Columbus, Crawford, Moreland, Zebulon, Jersey, and soon the Lula repeater. I heard some testing going on today. I'm very excited about the progress there. The machine is not yet operational, but we're getting closer every day, and I can hardly wait. Not to mention the VoIP service, also known as Zello. Tonight, our RF coverage is approximately 56,000 square miles, but because of the world of digital, our coverage is worldwide. Any place you have a network connection and Zello service, you can access this network. This net takes place every Thursday evening at 7:30 p.m. I'd like to thank everyone who has made the North Georgia GMRS the most expansive and active GMRS network in the country. Your net control tonight is Atlanta 946, WQIR 514. My name is Justin, and I'm located right here at Studio B, Woodstock, Georgia. On the net, you can talk about your day's activities, radio equipment, or anything you think we'd like to hear. Tonight we're going to talk about things that we did to prepare for last week's storm and lessons that we've learned that we might change for the next one. This is a family-based network, so we'd like to get your family involved. We'd love to hear from spouses and children. So anybody who has an interest in coming on the air tonight, please get them involved. Once the floor is open, it is permissible to address other members of the net by their name or their tactical unit number. Your call sign is only required when you check in and check out of the net. At this time, I'm going to acknowledge our early bird check-ins. Let me break. Okay, there's my list. Our early bird check-ins were Gainesville 285, CV Smith in Murrayville is in this evening, as well as Gainesville 286, Lynn in Murrayville. Also in, but I have my suspicions that might not be correct. We'll see what happens. Atlanta 420, William in Roswell in tonight. Gainesville 117, Damon in Murrayville is also in tonight. Columbus 17, Jerry in Columbus is in tonight. Atlanta 403, Bobby in White County in and out. Atlanta 931, Scott in Canton in and out. McDonough 39, Bruce in Stockbridge is in and out. 1402, Todd incoming is in tonight, as well as 1403, Krista with a K, and 1404, Jessica. I have Atlanta 810, John in Dawsonville in and out, as well as 811, Victoria in Dawsonville in and out. Atlanta 292, Derek in Rockmart is in with us this evening. Atlanta 948, Gary in Woodstock is in and out. Gainesville 417, recently changed from Atlanta 417. William in Auburn is in with us this evening. Atlanta 236, Nick incoming is in and out. Thank you, Nick. McDonough 22, Tim in Stockbridge is in with us. And I have Atlanta 538, Rob incoming, and Atlanta 539, Carol incoming, both in and out. Thank you, Rob and Carol. And I just want to say thanks to everyone who has checked in early tonight, and particularly to those who have checked in and out. Appreciate you taking the time to make your presence known and listening in along the way. At this time, I will take any additional check-ins from any repeater anywhere. Net control standing by.
Atlanta 285, checking in. Dallas, this is Ike.
This is Atlanta 261, WRCT 399, Scott from Holly Springs. If you wouldn't mind net control, just check me in and check me out. And talk soon. Thanks again.
This is WRMC 853, Atlanta 252, Shad, Emerson, Georgia, checking in.
This is Columbus 40, WQZF 998, John and Crawford.
This is WRM 8799, Atlanta 312, Stacy from Emerson, checking in and out.
This is Atlanta 721, WRKT 728, David, Southwest Paulding, checking in.
This is Gainesville 23, WROU 359, Auburn, Georgia. Name is Bob. Checking in.
All right, let me go ahead and acknowledge what we have here. Let's see, I need to make one little correction right here. Sometimes my fat fingers will hit the caps lock key and it just makes everything look ridiculous. So I have to go back and make corrections. I have Atlanta 285, Isaac in Dallas. I think I heard you refer to yourself as Ike. So I think I'm going to go ahead and just change that to Ike, and if that's not correct, be sure and let me know. But, whoops, that didn't change that. That just made it silly. Okay, so we're going to make that Ike in Dallas. Now I've messed things all up. There we go. Next I heard Atlanta 261, Scott in Holly Springs. Scott, we haven't heard from you for a little while. In fact, 947 and I were just talking about you and your family a couple of days ago, and hope that all is well with you. Scott, I've got you in log as in and out, but hope to hear you very soon and catch up with all the things that have happened since last we've heard from you. Good to hear from you, Scott. Next I've got Atlanta 252, Shad in Emerson. Shad, you're sounding better, so hope that you're on the uphill side of things, and looking forward to talking with you. Also, I heard in there Columbus 40, John in Crawford. John, I've got you in the log for this evening. Appreciate you coming along. I've got Atlanta 312, Stacy in Emerson. Stacy is in and out tonight. I hope that things are improving for you, and look forward to catching up with you very soon, Stacy. Also, I have Atlanta 721, David in Southwest Paulding County. And I have Gainesville 23, Bob in Auburn, Georgia this evening. That's what I have at this point. Let me go ahead and break for any additional check-ins. Net Control standing by.
Net Control, this is Atlanta 114, WRK 735, Yusuf in Dunwoody.
This is WRKT 530, ATL 671, John in Ballground. This is WRMY 278, Blue Ridge 24, Don in Blairsville, checking in.
This is Atlanta 114, WRK 735, Yusuf in Dunwoody, checking in.
This via RKK 629, Chattanooga 84, Jim up in Hickson, Tennessee.
Yeah, all right. Last station, all I heard was a burst of static and a voice in the distance. I wasn't able to make any of that out. Let me go ahead and acknowledge those that I do have. I have Atlanta 114, Yusuf in Dunwoody. Thank you, Yusuf, for checking in tonight. We have Atlanta 671, John in Ball Ground. Appreciate it, John. We have Blue Ridge 24, Don in Blairsville. Got you in here, Don. And I've got Chattanooga 84, Jim in Hickson, Tennessee. Great to hear from all of you. Station that last checked in, you'll have to do something to improve your signal. Find a higher elevation or better circumstance, or maybe if you can speak louder into the microphone and modulate through the noise, we might be able to hear you that way. Net control standing by for additional check-ins.
This is Unit 45, WREJ 789. We're going to check in and check out and listen. Thank you.
This is Atlanta 750 WRMR 367. Jeff in Waleska, checking in and out.
Yeah, all right, let me go ahead and acknowledge, let's see, where did we leave off? That was Noonan 45, EJ in Noonan, in and out, and Atlanta 750, Jeff in Waleska, in and out. We'll go ahead and head to the top from here, but before we do, a couple of things I want to talk about. First one is this. If I didn't get you checked in, don't worry. We'll have an opportunity for additional check-ins later in the evening, so no fret. Stick around. I think it'll be worthwhile. Next thing I want to talk about is membership renewals. We're coming down to the wire. We don't want to leave anyone behind, so if you are unable to renew for financial reasons, but you have an interest in remaining with the organization, please reach out to myself or Gary. We would love to make arrangements to be able to keep you involved and connected to the network here. So please don't hesitate if that's a problem. If it's not a problem and you're just waiting, that's fine. Just know that come February, we will begin reassigning TAC numbers. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to start actively seek and destroy and get rid of anybody who's not renewed. But if we have a need for a TAC number and you're sitting on one and have not renewed, it's possible that we'll reassign it. Now, if you want a different TAC number, for whatever reason, if you want a specific TAC number, and that's why you haven't renewed, let us know. Go ahead and renew and let us know what TAC number you would like. And if it's possible to make that change, we'll do it. So just communicate with us, and we'll do our best to accommodate your needs and wishes. Hamfest. We've got a Hamfest coming up in February. It's a little over a month away, 5 weeks-ish. It'll be Dalton Hamfest on a Saturday. We are in talks with the Dalton Hamfest about arranging for a table inside. I'm not sure where things stand with that. If we get that, that'll be cool. If not, then it may just be a tailgate spot outside if the weather allows. So one way or the other, at this point, we're planning on the Dalton Hamfest. So anyone interested in coming out to meet and greet, that would be a great place to do it, and a great opportunity to explore the boneyard and the vendors inside, and perhaps bring along some cash to wheel and deal and find some treasures of your very own. Also, if folks have got items that they'd like to sell, it's only $5 for it's $5 admission, and then if you want to be in the boneyard, it's an additional $5. So for $10, you're going to come and set up on the tailgate of your truck, or set up under a small tent and a table or two, and sell some of your surplus gear. That's a great opportunity. to make that happen. All right, so with all those things out of the way, let's go ahead and now introduce our guest for the evening. Yusuf, Atlanta 114, has recently accomplished what I think is a pretty cool goal, and that is an activation. Well, Yusuf, why don't I just let you talk about this? This is a pretty cool thing. Atlanta 114, go ahead.
Roger, this is Atlanta 114. I'm Yusuf. Hey guys, my name is Yusuf, and you guys know me as Atlanta 114, but I've also gone by Kilo Oscar 4, Kilo Hotel Oscar, and most recently, since acquiring my general FCC amateur radio license, is Kilo 4, Kilo Hotel Oscar. I possess a GMRS technicians and a general license. And amateur radio has a lot of different avenues that people like to get into. Some guys like to operate from their shack with 1,000 watts. Some guys like to do satellite work. Some guys like to go out into parks. And some guys like to just work with older radios and things of that nature. I got into amateur radio, and I started doing a concept that they call SODA. And this is what they call SODA, Summits on the Air. And this is where amateur radio operators, they take their radios and they go on national, on summits and mountains all over North Georgia and all over the world, up to like 100 countries. And they get points for activating these mountains. Typically, to activate a mountain, you have to get 4 solid contacts. Let me let the repeater reset for 1 second.
Yeah, you started to break up a little bit there, Yusuf. Your radio might be getting warm, so I'm gonna yammer here for just a minute. We'll let your radio cool off. And so what Yusuf is talking about is an activity called Summits on the Air, and it's an amateur radio activity. But it's a cool thing to do, and I know that many of our GMRS members have participated in traveling to various parks and various peaks throughout the area, Stone Mountain being a very popular one. In fact, I heard someone trying to make a contact from Stone Mountain just in the last couple of days, maybe it was over the weekend, a new user exploring various places to work his radio from, which is kind of what Yusuf is talking about, but Yusuf has taken this a step beyond just activating on summits in the contesting aspect of it. He's achieved a pretty remarkable accomplishment as well. Yusuf, go ahead and talk about that for a minute.
Okay, well, like you said, you can get up to 100, 200, up to 1,000 points when activating various mountains with various levels of difficulty. The scoring is like 1 to 10, and sometimes when you get to 1,000 points, you get the coveted mountain goat. The cool thing about working on a summit is you can typically take a handheld transceiver, and you can talk to somebody over 100 miles away because of the altitude. And what the amateur radio guys, they usually like to use what they call QRP radios that max out about 10 watts at the most. And with a resonant antenna and a good QRP radio, I've made contacts off of Blood Mountain and Wildcat Mountain all the way to Hamburg, Germany, and even had QSOs with people as far as Ontario, Canada. And I've even heard in my research of guys back in the 70s sitting on top of summits in California with a CD talking to people in Florida. That's just the most awesome aspect of being able to get up and do a summit and make these long-range voice contacts.
That's very cool, Yusuf, and yes, there's a lot to be said for making some of these long-range contacts, especially in times of different circumstances, to get news from far away or information about things that are happening in other regions. We have a geopolitical concern right now about things happening in Russia and in Ukraine, and there's news available from a perspective you're not going to get from the evening news on TV. If you listen to some of these operators in some of these areas, they can tell you things from, like I say, from a perspective that is different from the commercial news outlets. So long-range communications can be very, very informative. And so, Yusuf, tell me about your accomplishment last, I believe it was Saturday, with your summit activations.
Well, being that I've only been a general for about 6 months, some of the senior guys at my local repeater, they formed a club called the Southern Appalachian Summit QRPers. And basically, to be part of this club, they kind of vet you and they ask if you want to go through a sequence of tests. And in these testing, they see if you understand safety, you understand how to properly deploy your antenna, you understand how to use the right gear, and you know how to get contacts. And basically, it's a test of your overall outdoors capability, your physical fitness, and your ability to adhere to the rules and regulations of the FCC and the rules and regulations associated with summits on the air. And it even gets down to a point where, you know, I even had to make some fire from scratch. Well, I had my flat and my knife, so a little bit of magnesium. But once they see that you can handle yourself and you can get out on the mountain and be safe, get the work done, and make the contacts, at that point, you know, one of the guys I was with, he won a small QRP radio, and I was also gifted with a QRP guy's multi-band antenna that's about maybe 8 ounces, very thin. And
wow.
I typically bring an infrared half-wave antenna that's about 1.5 pounds. So, you know, I learned a lot from those guys. And that day, I went to Dyer Mountain and Flat Top Mountain and made over 30 long-range contacts all the way to Utah, Missouri, Pennsylvania, and the like.
So did you have to hike up these mountains from the base, or are there roads that you can drive up there?
For this particular activation, we drove to the base of Dyer Mountain, and then we hiked up to Dyer Mountain. And I was using APRS off of one of my FT3Ds to locate the group that I was getting with. And when we got together and we went to go to Flat Top Mountain, I think we went to one of the local trails. And typically when I do summit activations, I'll usually go to the base of a summit, and I do about 2 to 5 miles to the summit and activate, because that's the pleasure of it. I love to hike, and I love to do radios, and Summits on the Air is a great way for you to combine two of your passions. And just, man, it just feels so confident about yourself that with a small wire, a radio putting out no more than 10 watts, you can reach people around the globe.
Well, that's very cool, Yusuf, and congratulations on the achievement you made of being a part of that elite group, activating on 2 different summits in one day, and the physical efforts associated with accomplishing that. I'm not sure I'm up to that task, but I know that many of us are. And so, you know, this is just something, when I heard about this, I thought I'd really like for our GMRS friends to know that there's more to radio than just grabbing your microphone and chatting. There are many, many things that we can do and engage in the radio hobby. And Yusuf is a demonstration of one good one, but there are many others. You can use your radio as Don in Blairsville has often indicated, he'd like for people to use radios to talk about weather instances and weather spotting and things like that. We would like for people to be trained weather spotters that are going to engage in that, but there may be some opportunities coming up for some of those things. There are opportunities to volunteer your services as a radio operator for things like marathons and bicycle races and things of that nature. There are so many activities that you can do in radio, GMRS included, but that window of opportunity opens up tremendously with your technician license, and then even more so with the general license. So, and those are 2 licenses that are very, very achievable. So I just want to encourage everyone to celebrate with Yusuf and his accomplishments with the SOTA, and consider expanding your capabilities and challenging yourself to do more in radio. Find a way to incorporate 2 passions rather than just the one. So that's great stuff, Yusuf. Thank you for taking the time to come on and talk with the North Georgia GMRS this evening.
No problem. You know, North Georgia GMRS was the first place that I got on a 70-centimeter microphone besides being in the Marine Corps. And I talked to people. That was the beginning of my journey. And had it not been for North Georgia GMRS and that outstanding, unprecedented national GMRS network, I probably wouldn't have learned and done, I had the confidence to even try to get my technician's license. Because once I made that first contact with my BTEC, my GMRS BTEC, and my long antenna, that was it. I was hooked and I was addicted. And the last thing I want to say is, you know, the highlight of that hike for me Saturday was when we were coming up to Flat Top Mountain and it started snowing.
Yeah.
And the snow was pouring down on us. And we were just like little kids, just like really enjoying and appreciating that beautiful moment in the Cahuta Mountains. And, you know, we activated and, you know, we deployed our antennas. We set up a shelter half. And I ate some beef stew, and that whole day I wasn't even cold, even though it was down in the 30s. So you know that's when you're having a good time. So guys, if anybody has any questions or anything that I can do to help, you know, you can reach me on QRZ. My call sign is Kilo 4 Kilo Hotel Oscar. There's a few guys who have me on Facebook, and what little that I know, I'll be more than willing to share with you guys. And I just want to wish you guys a good evening and a 73, and thank you for having me. And I look forward to seeing some of you guys on the summit as the year goes on. This is Atlanta 114 WRFK 735, and I'll be clearing on the side.
Well, fantastic stuff. And again, thanks, Yusuf. And gee, what an honor it is for you to call out North Georgia GMRS as an inspiration to get your start in radio. You know, and that's the organization that I'm proud of, to know that a guy like Yusuf can grab a microphone from Dunwoody, grab a radio, a BTEC GMRS V1, and come on the air and be greeted and welcomed and included. And you know, this is a community that I want to be a part of. And these are the people and the folks that I want to be my friends and my family. So I just can't say enough about this GMRS community and how proud I am to be able to be a part of it, and what an honor it is to be associated with North Georgia GMRS. So good stuff. Thank you again, Yusuf. And with that, we're going to go ahead and move to the top of our list, and we'll check in with Gainesville 285 and see if CV Smith wants to talk about any preparations he made for last week's storm. And as a result of that storm, are there any preparations he feels like he needs to make for the next one? CV, are you with us? No, all right. I know that CV is multitasking this evening, and he may be engaged in conversation on another channel. So I'm going to go ahead and show CV as in and out. And I'm going to assume that Gainesville 286 Lynn is also in and out. And I'm just going to say good evening, Lynn. Hope all is well over that way. And let CV know that we missed him. And that'll move me on next to Atlanta 420 William in Roswell. William, were you prepared for last week's storm, and did it teach you anything about being prepared for the next one?
Roger that, Justin. I have to say that this year was pretty mild there, but usually just make sure I've got backup power and radio and battery power all set up there. Of course, gassing up the fuel tank and having reserves for that. But thank goodness we didn't end up with much. I do try to stay away from salt, only because I don't like how it treats vehicles and what it can do to damage grasses and stuff like that. I just do it the old-fashioned way and do some shovel in there if needed. I wanted to congratulate there, Joseph Semper Fi there, Joseph, on your accomplishments there. That's fantastic there. I recently saw some stories on a young man that got lost in the Smoky Mountains there with his uncle, was lost for 11 days before he was finally able to be rescued. And he had a cell phone with him, but he could not get any signal. And there are some parts of the country where even a magnetic handheld antenna or compass doesn't operate properly because of different anomalies in the area. And a handheld radio could be the difference between you saving your life or not, because you can climb to these mountain summits and be able to get on and make contacts at a very long distance over simplex, and it could be the difference between yourself and other family members surviving in a situation where you might have gotten lost inadvertently there. So that's about all I have there, Justin. So wishing everyone a great night there. 7-3s, WRFS 771.
Good stuff, William. And yes, the storm was pretty mild here as well. I know that it wasn't as mild for everyone as it was for us. I saw some pictures of the flagship repeater, and when I first looked at that, I thought, oh, that's a very gray-looking tower. But when I looked a little bit closer, that wasn't that the tower was looking very gray. It's that it was loaded down with ice. It was loaded down with ice from the bottom to the top, but the ice on top was really impressive. So there's a lot of ice on that tower. It's my understanding that it's clear now, that all of the ice has melted off, and that the tower is free of it at this time. But there was some concern that we have more weather moving in this weekend, and even though it's looking like it's just going to be rain here, it could be snow and ice up in those peaks again. So we kind of take for granted that the weather is very different in different parts of our own region. So that's a big part of the reason for tonight's discussion, because I just imagine that there's lots of us that were fully prepared for the weather that came. I didn't hear anyone come on the air to talk about having any sort of a weather-related emergency. But at the same time, these are opportunities that we can learn from the circumstance at hand and determine whether or not we need to make additional provisions. So good stuff, William. And yes, appreciate the acknowledgement of Yusuf and his marine heritage there. Next on my list is Gainesville 117, Damon in Murrayville. Damon, were you prepared for the storm, and did you bring anything out of it that you need to prepare for next time?
Thank you, Justin. First off, I want to say congratulations to Yusuf for his accomplishments. And the last weather that come through, again, like everybody said, it was pretty mild. A few years ago, we went 3 weeks without power, so I learned a lot from that time frame of getting everything fueled up, getting the propane tanks filled, making sure all the animals are taken care of, backup generators, extra batteries, radios, whatever we needed to communicate, and just be prepared to be without power for multiple weeks. We're on a leg of a power line that they seem to come to at the very last moment. So as far as learning, I learned my lesson years ago, and I hope I can keep going forward and keep the family safe and be prepared for the next 3 weeks without power. Hope it never happens. This is Gainesville 117, WRKG 852, and I'll be clear.
And that brings up an interesting point, Damon. My neighbor Gary, Atlanta 948, is a retired lineman, and he once told me that when they're working outages, they work the outage in a fashion that they look at all the individual outages, and they find the areas where a fix can bring the most customers back online the fastest. So it may be that your fix was a 5-minute fix and the other fix was an hour-long fix. But if they can spend that hour and bring on 100 customers, or that 5 or 10 minutes to bring on 1 or 2, they're gonna focus on those 100 customers and get those back up and running first. Or maybe it's 1,000 customers or 10,000 customers. Whatever the case may be, it's a numbers-driven game. So if fixing your outage only gets power back for 2 or 3 or 10 homes, it may be a while because you're at the bottom of the list. They're going to work on all of the other outages and all the other single points of failure that will recover the bigger bulk of customers first. It does a couple of things. The first thing it does is it gets the meter spinning on people's houses again. The electric company can't make money when you're out of power. The only way they can make money is if they can bill you for the power that you use. So for them to send a crew out to fix your 2 or 3 or 4 customers on your final leg line, while there are thousands of customers that are waiting, it doesn't make economic sense. So when you understand it from that perspective, you can kind of see where they're coming from. It doesn't make it any better when you're out of power for 3 weeks, but at least then you can kind of see the economics behind the decision making and understand why they're doing what they're doing. But I thought that was an interesting perspective, one I'd never really considered before. I do know this, that our power outages in Georgia have been much shorter and much less frequent than what we had in Indiana. And I think that there's a big difference in how they approach customer service here versus what we had in Indiana. And I don't know that this is true for all of the EMCs throughout the region, but Cobb EMC seems to have a pretty good network established, and they have a very reliable system. So, but we're not in the mountains, and I'm sure that can make a difference. Having trees on a line that you can't even get to can make a big difference versus having trees on a line around my neighborhood that you can just drive right up to, and you might have to chainsaw your way in, but you're going to be able to get there. So, an interesting point, and glad you made that comment, Damon. Next on my list is Columbus 17 Jerry in Columbus. Jerry, do you have any experience with the storm? How was it in Columbus? Did you just get rain down there?
Yes, sir. For the most part, that's all we had was intermittent rain and no storming and no ice, no snow or anything like that. But anytime we have the inclement weather notice from the newscast, what we do is just take out normal precautions of making sure that we have enough food in the house, enough water. We have fresh batteries for the flashlights, candles, and things of that nature. So let me take a break. And so we really don't have any bad weather here in Columbus. And I'll knock on my head since I don't see any other wood. And we're fortunate in that case. I've been here since 1995. I retired out of the military, and we've only had one tornado touch down, but it touched down very briefly, very little damage. So we don't want to rest on our laurels. But we do try to keep our head up and our ears open and in tune to what's going on around us. And so we were safe this time. Nothing out of the ordinary. Over.
Well, glad to hear it, Jerry. And yeah, I mean that's the key, is to be prepared and remain prepared. And that's something that we've focused on, more so this year, is to make sure that not just for storm preparation, but just no matter what, that we've got plenty of food on hand, that we have the resources available here, that we don't have to worry about getting out. If the storm is bad and we're iced in and it's days, we're good. If power goes out, we're not prepared for that. We should be, but we're not. And that's something that we've talked about on and off, but we just haven't made anything happen with that regard. So, that's something that we'll take a good hard look at. We've got some big projects coming up this spring and summer, and once we get past all of that, we'll probably take a look at a permanent standby generator installed here on the property. But for now, we're going to hope and pray that Cobb EMC can maintain our power as they have successfully for all these years. But good stuff, Jerry. Appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, being prepared, that's the key. Next on my list is Atlanta 403, Bobby in White County. He's always prepared to monitor YouTube for me and make sure that if we have a hiccup along the way, that I'll be quickly notified so that I can make a correction. Appreciate your help there, Bobby, with that. And I'm sure the other YouTube followers, the other 6 YouTube followers, appreciate that as well. Our YouTube viewership isn't real big, and we never really. It's not really our focus. The focus is always for the radio presentation, and YouTube is just a nice feature that we add. So I don't want to lose sight of that. So I guess my point is the fact that our viewership numbers are small doesn't impress me or bother me, or it's not what we're seeking to do here. It's just another tool for North Georgia GMRS users to be able to access the network with. So with that, we're going to go ahead and move on to Atlanta 931. Scott in Canton. Scott is in and out, so I'm going to say thanks for your check-in tonight, Scott, as well as McDonough 39 Bruce in Stockbridge. Bruce is also in and out, so appreciate you guys listening in and hanging around. Atlanta 1402, Todd incoming. Todd, are you with us this evening? Atlanta 1402, Todd incoming. All right, I'm going to go ahead and show Atlanta 1402, 1403, and 1404 in and out. I know that I don't believe Todd checked in and out, but maybe he did and I missed it. Whatever has got him tied up, we're going to go ahead and let him off the hook gently. Todd, if you're just not able to get back to the radio, feel free to chime in as we go. We'd love to hear from you. If you're not able to, that's okay too. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and move on and just say thanks to Atlanta 1403. Krista for hanging out with us this evening. It's great to know you're listening. And 1404, Jessica. Fantastic having the North Georgia GMRS youth along as we proceed. Next on my list is Atlanta 810, John in Dawsonville. John was in and out tonight. I think he has a number of things going on in the household, as well as Atlanta 811, Victoria, also Dawsonville, also in and out. Thank you, John and Victoria, for your check-in tonight. Next on my list is Atlanta 292, Derek in Rockmart. Derek, how did you fare through the storm, and did you learn anything for preparation for the next one?
We always learn things. It's a little different. I'm married, and there is that. We have natural gas logs, natural gas. We're good on that. And being able to cook, batteries, plenty of food, and rain for the most part. Carry forward. Maybe we can stay on the right side of things.
All right, Derek, that was very, very broken up. I got bits and pieces of that. I heard you make mention that you always learn things, and that's a great attitude. That is how we truly learn things. When we sit back and act as if we have all the answers and know things, we close off a part of our mind that allows us to grow and develop and experience things in a curious way and learn stuff. So what a great attitude, I want to say, Derek, about that. And I also heard you make mention that you're married, but I missed the context around that. So I'm not sure where that was going. Heard you make mention of a natural gas, or maybe it was propane, a log, as a source of heat, I suppose, and that's always a good plan. We have that as well here. So if the furnace were to quit, we could at least get something going in the fireplace. My experience with our fireplace is that as soon as we light a fire, the furnace comes on because it drafts the warm air out of the house right straight up the flue, and it brings the cold air in through all the cracks and crevices and through the poorly insulated house. But in the event of an emergency, we could fire up that gas log and or we could burn some wood, and if we crowd around in the living room there, we'll stay warm enough. So if that's what it has to be, that would be just fine for the duration. But missed most of what you said after that, Derek. So I don't know if you want to try to get to a better position and try us one more time. Make all of that second part out. Next on my list is Atlanta 948, Gary in Woodstock. Gary is always prepared, so he's in and out tonight. So he was prepared to sign off early, probably in bed by now. Maybe not. Maybe he's watching TV, but he's had enough of the net for the evening, and he's on his way. Next on my list is Gainesville 417, William in Auburn. William, how did you fare through the storm, and did you learn anything for the next one?
Yeah, I learned that the last thing that you're not supposed to work on is your generator. We got everything prepared, the propane, the food, all this, and I got an old generator, got it out on Friday. It didn't want to work. So Saturday, the snow starts coming down, and I'm thinking, okay, we're going out of power, and I failed to fix the generator. So Saturday was an interesting day, but I finally got it going. So next time, the generator will be checked first.
Very good. Yes, I think that's good advice, and that's something real easy to overlook. It ran when you put it away, and so there's no reason to think it won't start right up. But what if it doesn't? And with the fuel that's available today, the ethanol seems to be pretty hard on seals and things inside of the carburetor and whatnot. The jet seems to get stuck in a way, or plugged up in a way, that it doesn't atomize the fuel properly. And I've got two small engines out there right now that I probably haven't started in 2 or 3 seasons for that reason. It just needs a quick carburetor tear down and rebuild, clean everything up and put it back together. And I'm 100% sure that if I would do that, those small engines would run. I've stopped buying ethanol fuel for my small engines. It costs more, but I've got 2 places right near me where I can go and I can buy non-ethanol fuel, and that's the only thing I run in my small engines anymore. So even though it costs more, not having it tear up my equipment and have a machine not start when I need it to, and I'd be willing to bet that that's your trouble with that generator, is that ethanol fuel has gummed it up, and it just needs to be cleaned up in order to run. But hopefully you can get that taken care of here fairly quickly and be prepared for the next one. Next on my list, I have Atlanta 236. That would be Nick incoming. Nick is in and out this evening. Thank you, Nick, for your participation tonight. And that brings me to McDonough 22, Tim in Stockbridge. Tim, did you have anything more than rain down there? And is there anything that you need to? Did you learn anything about being prepared for the next storm?
No, we didn't have very much of anything except cold, rain, and snow mixed, and I saw a little bit of sleet here and there. But from the very beginning of all the reports of the weather, they were saying that it was not going to be very much in the way of ice and everything below I-20. Everything below I-20 was going to be pretty safe. Also, I knew the ground was way too warm for anything to stick. It had been warm, we had not had any cold, lengthy nights and days in the 20s for the ground to be ready for things to be sticking to the pavement and everything. So I knew it wasn't going to be a very much of an event for us down here. I knew some of the guys, people up there where you live, and others, north of 285 especially, and northeast of 285 were going to be maybe hit pretty bad in places, but I wasn't too worried about it. I try to stay prepared most of the time. Bad weather doesn't really bother me a whole lot. I just hold up and wait for it to pass, usually, especially if it's ice and snow, especially the first day when we do have an event where the snow or ice sticks to the ground. I just stay home. I don't get out and drive in that until, the roads start clearing up. I have gas heat, and I cook with gas, so, and no forced air. It's all gas space heaters, so I always have heat no matter what the lights do. And I'm kind of fanatical about having lots of flashlights with lots of batteries. I got a drawer full of batteries and probably about 8 or 9 good LED flashlights around the house here, so I've always got plenty of light, and I can use my cell phone hotspot to run my Chromebook laptop when the power goes out. So I'm usually in pretty good shape for these kind of events, and I usually always have food and water, so that's not much of an issue either.
Well, good stuff, Tim. And yeah, that is paying attention to what the forecast is saying is also a part of being prepared. And being ready in a lot of different ways. We're walking distance from Walmart, so if we can't drive out of here, we can walk down to the Walmart and get whatever they still have left on their shelves. But my experience has been that not only if I don't feel like it's safe for me to be out driving around, then it's not okay for me to expect others to be out driving around. So I don't want to go to Walmart and, because I'm a customer at Walmart, they have to have employees there. I want Walmart to be so slow and so unbusy that the one or two people that do show up can open up and run the store and not be flooded with a bunch of customers in an emergency situation. I don't want Walmart to have to call people in to risk their health and safety to come to work just so that people can go in there and buy video games and popcorn. It's good that they're open for the essential stuff, but I don't know that I want to encourage them to be open for the non-essential stuff. So same thing with the gas stations and the restaurants and whatnot. We're not going to go out and during these weather emergency times and engage in business in those kind of places, because we don't want those kind of places to be forcing employees to show up and putting people at peril so that they can serve pizzas or hamburgers. We are going to stay home, and we're going to shelter in place with the provisions that we have, because we've made arrangements to be sure that we are well stocked well ahead of time. We're not out at the last minute trying to buy a gallon of milk, and if the milk is gone and we run out, we're okay. We can get by without it. We have alternatives, and we're well prepared. So, there's no panic, from this end of things. I have my mom's bread machine, and I need to learn how to make bread in it. So I guess that's something I'm going to have to probably spend some time with, in the next few weeks. I used to have a bread machine years and years ago, and I didn't really care for the bread that came out of the bread machine because the crust was so tough. The bread was really good, but the crust was awful. But I've learned a hack, and that is that you let the bread machine make the dough, and then when the dough is done, you take the dough out of the bread machine and you put it in a bread pan and you bake the bread in an oven. Then you have a crust that's just like any other bread, and it is fabulous. So I need to exercise my bread making skills once again. But good stuff there, and thank you, Tim, for stretching that out long enough that I was able to dash out of the room and grab a cold beverage out of the refrigerator, because I failed to do that on my way in at my 7:25 break. So Appreciate that. Next on my list is, where is my list? There it is. It's Atlanta 538, Rob incoming. Rob is in and out tonight, as well as Carol, Atlanta 539. Thank you, Rob and Carol, for checking in. It's great to know that you're out there listening, and I hope that you have a terrific evening. And Atlanta 285, Ike in Dallas. Did I get that right?
This is Atlanta 1100, WRKP 291, checking in. I will be in and out.
All right, Atlanta 1100. What's your first name?
My first name is Joseph. Joseph. I am here over in East Point, Georgia. I am in East Point, Georgia. Sorry for the late check-in. I will be in and out, in and out.
All right, Atlanta 1100, Joseph. I've got you in the log as in and out. Let me correct that little typo there. There we go. From East Point. Thank you for the check-in. Now, we do always offer late check-ins a little bit later in the program, but if you've got to go, then that's the way it is. Appreciate you slipping in here and getting that check-in. Atlanta 285, Ike in Dallas. Are you with us?
Atlanta 285.
Did I get that right? Is it Ike?
Everybody calls me Ike. I put it this way, all my friends call me Ike, so I consider you all friends, so yeah, go ahead.
Well, I consider that an honor, and I will. I hope that I'm worthy of it. Ike, did you experience any severe weather last week? And if you did, were you prepared for it? And did you learn anything to help you prepare for the next one?
Yes, I was pretty well prepared. I had my generators where I could get it going, and my batteries, and food and water, and we had a little bit of snow, mostly rain, and it was cold, but nothing serious. But anyway, we were prepared.
Well, that's a good thing. And I'd like to say that we were prepared as well, but, you know, obviously there are things that we could do above and beyond what we have done to be better prepared. So all of these are things that come in time, and every step along the way is a step closer to being, you know, fully prepared. I don't know that we're ever getting there, but we'll see how it comes. But glad to know that you weathered the storm well. And is there anything you think you'd do differently for the next one?
I think I may have to turn my generator up just a little bit earlier, but I was a little bit late doing it. But I got it cranked up the first pool, so I guess that was good. But everything went fine.
Excellent stuff. Yes, I guess that's probably the one thing that would make folks the most nervous is not having prepped the generator. Make sure it'll start. Make sure that it's running well, and make sure that you have, you know, everything you need to get it connected to things. Like for instance, we've got forced air heat here, and my options for a generator connection would be, you know, I would have to make up a cord and run it into the house and figure out how to back tap into the panel, because I don't really have any place where I can just hook up a generator. So I would have to cluster something together kind of on the fly. So maybe with some of the home improvements that we've got going coming up here very soon, maybe we can make provision to add something for that. Let me break. Sorry about that. A little tickle in my throat. Good stuff, Ike. It's great to hear from you, and we'll definitely catch up with you again next time. Next on my list is Atlanta 261, Scott from Holly Springs. Scott is a regular who has been absent for a little while, so I was glad to hear from Scott this evening. He said he was going to be in and out, so I imagine he's busy with the family. Very easy situation to be in. Scott, I'm glad you checked in tonight, and I look forward to catching up with you very soon. Next on my list is Atlanta 252, Shad in Emerson. Shad, how did you and Stacy weather the storm?
Justin, we didn't get much down here, just a little bit of cold rain. As far as prepping, we are full-time RVers, so we're pretty much stocked up all the time between propane gas, food, and backup power. 312 has done an awesome job for the last 6 years. She's had to stay home every storm with the dogs while I either run a sand truck or plow truck for the city.
Yes, and that can be its own challenge to not be able to be at home. I know for many years as a railroader, working in maintenance, there were many times that we would be called out on trouble in a snowstorm. Switch heaters were the big thing. You would have up north, we get snow and ice, and that stuff will pack in between the rails on a switch. And so the dispatcher goes to throw the switch, and the switch won't fully throw because of the snow and ice packed in behind the switch points. So we have to go out there and clear that. Now we have machines, we call them switch heaters, and sometimes they're referred to as snow melters. Sometimes they're natural gas, sometimes they're oil fired. And down in this region, if a location has a switch heater, it's usually something that's called a cal rod, which is basically the same thing that your electric oven heating elements are made out of. So the cal rod gets attached to the rail at the switch points, and it just melts whatever ice accumulates, in that area. Up north, those things are typically natural gas-fired forced air blowers that blow hot air and melt the snow and ice away from the switch points with hot air. Very expensive. They use a lot of gas. They use a lot of energy. But they keep the control points operating in bad weather until they fail. Then I have to go out and service them. And usually that involves, some basic component level troubleshooting and change a part here or there, and they're back in action. They're not hard to work on. They're just, they never break down in good weather. So it's always miserable when you're out there working on them. Yeah, it seems like no matter how much you do ahead of time to get these things ready for the weather that's coming, one of them somewhere is going to let you down in the bad weather. And then you have train delays, and that's never a good thing. So I'm glad I don't have to do those things anymore. But out there in the worst of the weather, and you have to leave the family at home to fend for themselves. I get it, Shad. So congratulations and kudos to Stacy for handling things while you're out there in the salt truck and the plow truck taking care of the city. Next on my list, I have Columbus 40, John in Crawford. John, how did you fare the storm? Did you learn anything to prepare for the next one? Columbus 40, John in Crawford. Are you still with us? All right. Well, I'm guessing John had to break away and move on to something. I'm going to go ahead and show John as in and out in the log. And we'll go ahead and move on to Atlanta 312. Stacy in Emerson is in and out. Thank you, Stacy, for your check-in tonight. And that brings me next to Atlanta 721, David in southwest Paulding County. Big snowstorm coming, and rather than buckle down and settle in and be prepared for the weather, you went camping, didn't you?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Justin, and good evening to everyone on the net. We actually went to Talladega National Forest Friday morning and stayed out there Friday night and came home Saturday morning. It was kind of cold, but we had a nice fire built and enjoyed spending some time out in the woods and practicing a little bit of bushcraft with 586 Paul. It was a good time to get out there and just kind of disconnect a little bit from everything. Just drive out in nature and take it in a little bit. Let me break. thing for winter. It's just a matter of if you're home, you're okay. Now my generator broke down. I got to get that fixed. But we've got a fireplace and other propane heaters just in case. The big thing is throwing a bag. I have a set bag that I put in my truck during cold weather. That's got a full Gore-Tex hunting suit that's insulated, blanket, and a couple of things that I can eat, granola, thing like that. If you couldn't get out, you don't have to cook it or anything like that. I've done the same thing for my son recently. He works night shift at Kroger, so same thing. I had to throw a bag in his car in case he couldn't, if he gets stuck at Kroger, he's got food, but in case he gets stuck on the side of the road or something. Just goes with that be prepared motto.
Well, that's a great point. A couple things that we, up north, we always made a point of making sure there were a couple of blankets in the car and things like granola bars and water bottles. And of course, up north, if you leave a water bottle in the car overnight, it's going to freeze. But you know what? Frozen water is better than no water. And if you're in a situation where you've got to fend for yourself in a vehicle because you're broke down in a snowdrift overnight, or you've slidden off the road or something of that nature, you got to have some provisions and you need to have some resources. So that was second nature for virtually all of us living up north, was to have some of those provisions in the vehicles. Usually, I would leave with fresh water. But if you're out for 10 or 12 hours, that water may not stay fresh throughout the day. It's depending on where you keep it. So if you keep it in the cabin, a lot of times it'll stay thawed, as you're working throughout the day. But if you park someplace and go in for a couple hours, when you come out, that water's frozen hard, and it takes a long time to thaw out. Around here, it's not such an issue. You'd be hard-pressed to have a water bottle freeze in a vehicle around here. It doesn't get cold enough, long enough, for that to be a real concern. So you could throw a couple of water bottles in the vehicle and not have any issues there. But the granola bars, that's a great thing to do. There's almost always granola bars and things of that nature in my truck. The problem is, when you open one up, it may have been in there for 2 weeks. It may have been in there for 2 months. I don't know. It may have been in there for a couple of years. So, you're kind of taking a risk there when you tear into one of those granola bars out of my truck. But there again, something's better than nothing. And I've had some 2-year-old granola bars, and I don't know. I think they're okay. They don't taste as good, but they don't taste bad. So I think they're fine. So good stuff, David. Glad to hear from you. That brings me next to Gainesville 23, Bob in Auburn. Bob, how did you fare the storm, and did you learn anything for the next one?
We fared the storm just fine. Auburn probably only had 2 or 3 inches of snow. I'm an avid backpacker and jeeper, so that kind of makes me a side prepper in a way. Generator's good, propane, plenty of gas, plenty of food. But I did hear a lot of generator issues on the conversation tonight. One of the things I use in my generator is Lucas Oil ethanol treatment, and it sure makes a big difference in keeping them carburetors clean.
Yeah, and I used to use the what did they call that stuff that you put in the gas for when you put a machine away for the off season, the Stay-Bill. That's what it was, Stay-Bill. I used to put that in my small engine gas tanks in the as we come into winter, and I know the machine's going to be sitting for a while, and that seems to help. But I still have had issues with engines and not being able to start them in the spring, even using Stay-Bill. So I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years ago, I quit buying that crap. I don't use it anymore. I don't. I haven't bought any for probably 4 years. And what I do now is I buy non-ethanol gas. And that's been the biggest difference maker because, like I said, I've got a couple of machines out there that I haven't started for a few seasons. But everything else, I know that I could go out there to my push mower right now, and it's probably got anywhere between a half and a quarter of a tank of gas in it. And by the second or third pull, even in this cool weather, I'm going to have a running push mower because I just don't have the trouble once I escape the ethanol. That seems to be the single biggest improvement to my small engine equipment around here has been getting away from the same gas I put in the cars. So, you know, coming from a part of the world that grows a lot of corn, I just, you know, we should be feeding that corn to livestock. We should not be making ethanol out of it. You know, just based on my observations from what it does to small engines, it can't be that good for bigger engines. Obviously, they must be using different materials to allow for it. But I just, you know, I think that we should be able to come up with a better formulation than ethanol. But good stuff. I appreciate your comments, Bob, and I'm glad to know that you're able to keep your machines running. What's the name of that product again that you said? Was it Lucas Oil? I'm familiar with the Lucas Oil additives, you know, for the crankcase. But what was it that you'd mentioned?
It is Lucas Oil. It is a ethanol treatment. It's made just for the ethanol gas to help keep it from getting as gummy as it does. Another thing I did to prepare for the storm is I'm a heart patient, and I always make sure when there's a possibility of stores being closed that I have all my prescriptions ready to go and not be short on any pills.
You know, that's a really good point, especially, you know, we do the 90-day stuff around here for our maintenance meds. And when you get down to, you know, the last 2 weeks, I can't tell you how many times we've gotten down to Julie being, you know, virtually down to her last pill or even out of pills, and the new shipment hasn't arrived yet. And we end up getting, you know, an emergency 10-day supply to bridge the gap. You would think after that happens so many times we would have 10 or 20 or 30 days of surplus, so that when we get down to the last 30 days, here comes another 90. But it never really has worked out that way, and it seems like we're always getting right down to the crunch. I wish that the providers with their mail order 90-day stuff would allow for that. Something that's very challenging, because when you do run out, they're really reluctant to give you a short-term supply. The insurance doesn't want to pay for it, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So that's a great point, and something that we should be watching out for is making sure that we have an adequate supply of our maintenance meds. I'm glad you brought that up. All right, Bob, in Lucas Oil ethanol treatment, I'm assuming it's something you put in a gas tank?
That is correct. I think the ratio is 1 ounce will treat 5 gallons. So it's an off-the-shelf item over at Walmart. Probably any auto parts store would probably have it as well.
All right. Well, something to consider, especially if you're not able to get the non-ethanol gas. I know it's not as easy to find in all places. It was really hard to come by in Fort Wayne, but it's right here on the corner where I live, so it's real easy for me to get to. And like I say, that's been the biggest difference maker in terms of reliability of all the small engines around here. I recently brought home from my mom and dad's farm. I brought home a small Owatonna Mustang skid loader. It's 100 years old. It's very, very old. All of the hydraulic lines on it are rotted out and are leaking. The pins for all the rams are worn to a point that they need to be replaced, and I can't seem to find replacement parts. Thinking I'm going to have to find a fabrication shop and have them make some pins for me, because I don't know where else to go to get this stuff. But that machine was always hard starting, and but now I've run maybe 10 or 12 gallons of this non-ethanol gas through it, and it is, it starts up very easily. It takes a little bit of manual choke on it. It doesn't have an automatic choke, so just a little bit of manual choke, and it comes up and it starts, and then ease the choke off, and it's running smooth in no time at all. When I first brought that machine down here, I know that they'd been feeding it ethanol fuel, and man, I had a tough time getting that thing going sometimes. Crank and crank and crank and crank until it would finally fire, and then it would sputter and cough and puke and die and have to start it again and go through that process 2 or 3 or 4 times before got it to where it was running smooth. Now, with the non-ethanol fuel, it starts up easy, and usually it's a short crank and just a very short time to a nice smooth idle. So yeah, I'm convinced that the fuel is the difference. All right, Bob, thank you for that. Next on my list is Atlanta 114 Yusuf from Dunwoody. We spoke with Yusuf at length about his soda activations earlier in the evening, and just want to say thanks for being our guest today on the program. It was great to have you. That brings me next to Atlanta 671, John in Ballground. John, were you prepared for the storm event last week, and did you learn anything from it?
Hey, Justin, thank you for your opportunity to speak tonight. We were probably over-prepared. We moved from a little further south to Ball Ground about 2 years ago, and, we figured we were moving up into Ball Ground. There'd be a lot of snow, and to be honest with you, we didn't have much snow and didn't have much need for anything.
Well, and you never can tell, because I can't remember, it was 2-3 years ago. They were calling for a little bit of snow, and we thought we would get 2 or 3 or 4 inches, and it was right around Christmas time. And we were excited about having a white Christmas. It was going to be beautiful, and it was. It was absolutely beautiful, but it wasn't 2 or 3 inches. It was every bit of a foot. We had a foot of heavy, wet snow, and it came down in a fairly short period of time, and it was so heavy that it just absolutely annihilated this dogwood tree, this beautiful flowering dogwood tree that we had in our front yard. Just split that tree and just destroyed it, just ruined that tree. And it was kind of a heartbreaking thing, because I love that tree, and we lost the whole thing out of that storm. So it's not unheard of to get snow in this area. It doesn't happen every year. It doesn't. It's the only time I ever saw a foot of snow here that came down at one time. So that was probably 3 or 4 years worth of snow combined into one storm. But otherwise, it's infrequent, but you just never know what you're going to get, and it is important to be prepared, even if you're over prepared. So I would call that a win. So good stuff, John. Glad that worked out for you. Is there anything you would do different for the next one?
No, we had just enough snow to make the front yard look beautiful, and we're prepared for much worse. And back when you had a conversation a couple of weeks ago about being preppers and stuff like that, we're ready for much worse, and hopefully we don't have to worry about that.
Well, there again, that's what it's all about. Is being prepared doesn't mean that you're counting on the disaster. It just means that if it happens, you're equipped to deal with it, and that's the difference between catastrophe and a story. If you're prepared for it, then after it happens, you just you live through it and you had a story to tell. Whereas if you're not prepared for it, you hope to survive it and have a story to tell. So. That's good stuff. All right, glad to know that you are well prepared and ready for the next one up there in Ball Ground. Next I have Blue Ridge 24 Don in Blairsville. Don, how did you fare up there in Blairsville? Did you get much? Were you prepared for it? And did you learn anything for the next one?
This is Blue Ridge 24. Yeah, we were prepared. We support the Gap Century bicycle race, so I'm always prepared for temporary communications, having the battery back up for the shack here. I have a basement, and there's propane heat down here, and we can cook down here. There's a bedroom, so got that. What I would do next time, let me recycle. My dad's 96. He's on an oxygen concentrator, and I'd like to work on backup for the oxygen concentrator. They get on the list, if there's a power outage for getting back up quick. But that's one thing that I'd like to do, and also I'm testing GMRS down there, in case they need anything. But all in all, we made it here. I do have food in the basement, so at least a couple months supply. And today I've been messing around with hydroponics gardening, so hopefully I can have my vitamin C salads, for the next time. So back to you.
Good stuff. And yes, the hydroponics, that's something that, I'm not a green thumb guy. It's something that I wish that somebody right near me could just take that on and do that, because I think that's fascinating. And a great potential to experiment with different foods and growing different varieties of things in a very controlled environment. So fascinating thing. I just don't know that it's my thing. But hydroponics, great way to be prepared for any sort of a disaster and have the means of being able to create a fresh source of nutrition. Gardening too is another great tool. I know that 721 has made mention that they do a lot of gardening and canning, and that's part of their plan for being prepared for things. So good stuff, Don. I appreciate your comments. And yeah, as I've made mention, and hopefully you'll be able to put something together. I don't know what your program is or what your calendar looks like, but if you have training events that are coming available, definitely let the membership know. And I think that there's many people that might like to participate in some of those events. So I would definitely encourage you to communicate those things through the Facebook page. Next on my list is Chattanooga 84, Jim in Hickson. Jim, how did you fare the weather up there in Tennessee? And were you prepared for it? And did you learn anything about preparing for the next one?
Hey, Justin. Yeah, I'm prepared for it. I always have my go bag, and, I've got battery power for radios and stuff like that. We just basically had rain down here in the valley. We saw snow, but it didn't do anything. And the mountains got about 4 inches around us, but didn't lose power, didn't have any issues. I do have an issue with my generator as well. After removed, I've realized it's not running, so I've got to get that worked on or get it replaced. It's just a small one, but I use it for a lot of different things. If I'm without power for a while, I can put the refrigerator on it or whatever I need to. But yeah, it's always a manual thing with extension cords and stuff like that. But it gets the job done. That's the most important part, I think. And relying on these weather people, that's a really hit or miss. I've found that the Weather Channel people seem to be able to get it better. But it's tough. It's tough for everybody. It just depends on when it's going to get cold and where it's going to get cold. We thought we were going to have a lot of black ice, but the wind came up like it always does and dried off the roads, which that was a good thing. So that's pretty much it for me.
Yes, and that's one of the things I was always very frustrated with back when we lived in Indiana was the weather forecasts from the National Weather Service were were not very reliable. Um, you just you just couldn't count on a good, accurate forecast. However, the internet service back then, this thing called the Weather Underground was fairly new, and the Weather Underground sourced all of its weather data from private individual weather stations, people that would have anemometers at their homes, and people that would have sensors that would detect temperature and barometers and humidity levels. All of these devices in various people's homes spread out throughout the country create these little micro weather data points, and they can use that to watch weather trends very accurately move throughout regions. And because there's so many of these small weather stations providing the data, whereas the big weather forecasters are relying on much fewer data points from very sophisticated and expensive equipment. Um, Alternatively, the Weather Underground was sourcing people's private equipment. People would buy the stuff. Most of the time, it was ham radio operators, but not necessarily exclusively that. Anybody with an internet connection can buy this equipment and connect it to their house, and it pretty much just takes care of itself and reports to a central database weather conditions. So we learned to use the Weather Underground for weather forecasting on the railroad because it was so much more reliable than the TV news weather or the radio weather up there in that region. I've not really paid any attention to it since we've moved here because the weather here is so much better all the time than it ever is in Indiana that I almost don't care anymore about the weather because no matter what it is, it's an improvement from what I'm used to. And so I've just not gotten very involved in weather stuff. But that's something that I know that from that perspective, the Weather Underground as a web page was a much more accurate source of good, reliable weather forecasting and weather data. And part of the problem that we have in this region is we've got WSB-TV making weather forecasts for 29 counties in a massive area of the state. And the weather oftentimes can be different at my house than it is at Gary's house next door. And I say that jokingly, but literally Walmart is 2 blocks away from us. And shortly after I moved here, I walked out of the Walmart store in the pouring down rain, and I got drenched in the time that it took for me to get from the store to my vehicle, only to drive home 2 blocks from where Walmart is to where my driveway is, and it's dry. On my property, it hadn't rained a drop. At Walmart, it was pouring down rain, and I got soaked. So literally, the weather can be that different. And when you have these little microsystems that are moving around in isolated showers of that nature, man, how do you predict that unless you have 1,000 data points in an area that the news coverage has 4 data points or 6 data points? So that's the only way you're going to come up with that kind of precise weather forecasting. So look into that, Jim, if you're interested in it. You don't necessarily have to have a weather station yourself, but if you add one to your property, that only helps to make the forecasts more accurate. So good stuff. All right, next on my list is Noonan 45 EJ in Noonan. Glad to have you along this evening, EJ. He's in and out, so we'll catch up with EJ again very soon. And that brings me to Atlanta 750, Jeff in Waleska. Jeff is also in and out. Thank you, Jeff, for your check-in tonight. And finally, we have Atlanta 1100, Joseph in East Point. Joseph is in and out tonight. Thank you for your check-in tonight, Joseph. We're glad to have you along, and hope that you're able to tune in again next week. And that brings me to the end of our list. So at this time, Net Control will stand by for any additional late check-ins, any questions, or comments, the floor is open.
420 with a comment.
This is Atlanta 810, WRNQ863, checking back in.
This is Atlanta 42, WRNV798, Andre in Winder.
Atlanta 780, WQUV 439, Houston, Powder Springs. Check me in and out, Justin. Good evening.
This is Atlanta 434, WRKR 284, Ron and Cumming. Check me in.
All right, Net Control is going to go ahead and acknowledge Atlanta 420 and Atlanta 810, both with comments. I'll come to you guys here shortly. Also acknowledging Atlanta 42, Andre in Winder. Thank you for your check-in tonight, Andre. It's great to hear from you. Atlanta 780, Houston in Powder Springs. We haven't heard much of you on the air here lately, Houston. And glad to know that you're out there kicking and all is well. Love to chat with you, but I've got you in log as in and out, so we'll chat again very soon. That brings me also to next check-in, Atlanta 434, Ron incoming. I've got you in the log tonight, Ron. Excuse me, let me rig. Okay, so that's what I have at this point. Do we have any other check-ins before I run through this group?
This is WRMX270, WRMX270, Atlanta 760, as far as I know. But I haven't paid my dues, so you might just kick me out.
All right, Atlanta 760. Let me see. That looks like that is Tony from, man, I don't know how to say this. Sati Nakuchi? I probably didn't say that right, Tony, but I'm going to put you in the log. You know, I don't know if you've been here for the entire program, Tony, but I'm going to go through this all over again. You're not kicked out of the group. We don't want to lose anybody. I'd very much like to keep you involved in the group. We're going to preserve your tactical unit number information through the end of the month, and so you still have time to renew. If you're unable to renew for financial reasons, I wish that you would reach out to either Gary or myself. You can do that by sending an email to Gary at nggmrs.org. or to me, Justin at nggmrs.org, and we'd definitely like to look at your circumstance, and if you need some help getting your dues paid or anything of that nature, we have some opportunities available. So please stick around. Please remain a part of North Georgia GMRS, and if there's any way we can help you do that, please give us the opportunity to do so. So thank you for your check-in, Tony. I'm going to go ahead and take comments from 420 and 810. Then we'll go through this this last round of check-ins. William, you're up.
Thank you, Justin. I just wanted to mention to people that even in Georgia, we can have unpredictable weather that can come late in the season, like in February and March, that's very unpredictable. The worst that I remember was the snow blizzard of 1993. I was living up in Chatsworth at the time there and working for a small hospital as well as being in military. And I do remember walking 8 miles to work there and walking back after midnight there. And back then I only had a wood stove, didn't have radios, didn't have internet, but you get along just fine. And then that ice storm we had just a few years ago, but power stayed on, but it was two examples of storms just that come through and just really hit us for a punch there. But I would have to recall, and any other members they wanted to chime in there, I think the blizzard of '93 in Georgia here was the worst that I recall in our history there, at least in my period of time. All right, that's my comment there, Justin. Y'all have a great night. I'll be signing out as well, WRFS 771.
No, right. Yes, we can have some unpredictable weather, and we can have severe weather. We're not immune to that. And one of the concerns for this storm that came in was that conditions may be favorable for some severe, activity such as tornadoes and things. Now, I did hear some thunder and lightning during that storm. We used to call that thunder snow back in Indiana. It was very rare. But there were occasions where we had thunderstorms that were snowstorms. Usually, if you had thunder and lightning during a snowstorm, you were going to get piled on. And from where we were at in Fort Wayne, oftentimes that was the result of what they called lake effect snow, where the weather system would move over the Great Lakes and pick up a lot of moisture. And it would move that moisture over northeast Indiana, northwest Ohio, and southern Michigan, and would dump huge amounts of snow. In fact, many of us have probably heard weather reports from Buffalo, New York, where they get as much as 4 feet or more of snow in a single snowfall. And that's because they're right on the edge of the lake. They're right on the edge of all the lakes. And as those weather systems move across all of that water and pick up massive amounts of moisture, only to begin dumping it as soon as the weather system hits shore, which is where Buffalo is. So Buffalo and Syracuse, New York are famous for getting huge amounts of snow. So, and that's part of that lake effect. I don't think in Fort Wayne, we ever got more than a foot or 18 inches of snow in a single snow event, with the exception of a couple of blizzards that happened. There was a blizzard of '78. There was another blizzard in 83 or 85, somewhere in that range. It was half of what the '78 blizzard was. And there have been some smaller blizzard type events, since then. But the blizzard of '78 is one that I recall very vividly because we were out of school for a couple of days, and I remember the first time the buses ran, sitting on top of the snowbank on the side of the road and being able to watch the bus come by underneath us because the snowbank was stacked higher than the bus was tall. And so we sat on top of the snowbank waiting for the school bus in my elementary years, and the school bus driver scolded us for being on top of the bank, that we could get hurt coming down and that we shouldn't do that, but we did that every day, and she scolded us every day. Sorry about that. Let me go ahead and move on with comments from Atlanta 810. John, go ahead.
Yeah, Justin, thanks for coming back around to me here at the end. I had a couple of things to take care of at the house and get the kiddos to bed. As far as the storm and preparations, I think we did a pretty good job here. The only struggle I really had this time was I went out on Saturday morning and filled up some gas cans in order to fuel up the generator and then have some on standby. And I don't know if anybody on this network has heard me complain about the new regulated nozzles that come on gas cans, but I had a 5-gallon gas can nozzle that completely fell off. It was tight, but the nozzle itself came off while I was pouring it into the generator, and I got soaked with fuel. I have since ordered old school on Amazon, old school nozzles that don't have the neat child-proof stuff that I can't seem to use. And they screw on, and in my experience, seem to work pretty good.
That's very interesting. Yes, and I saw at Ollie's up in Canton a couple of days ago. I don't know how many are familiar with that store. It's right there beside the Harbor Freight. I was in there. I like to go in there and look around. I almost never buy anything from that place because it seems like it's all junk. But they had on an end cap some gas cans, 2.5 gallon cans, or maybe they're 2 gallon cans. The size that I prefer, I don't like a 5 gallon can because I just don't like how awkward it is to pour into a small fuel container with a great big gas can. So I would rather have 2 or 3 2 gallon cans than a single 5 gallon can. And that's what they had at Ollie's. They had these 5 gallon cans with the simple nozzle. And I thought, how are they allowed to even sell that? But I don't know. They had them. I was very tempted to buy them. They were $5 a piece for these 2 gallon cans. I thought that was a pretty okay price. The trouble is I've got, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 of them here. I don't really need any more, but I do have, John, thank you for bringing this up, a couple of cans with crappy nozzles, and I have a couple of cans that are missing nozzles. So I'll be placing an order very soon. Go ahead and send me that link. That's a great idea. I'd never considered sourcing that that way. So good thinking. Glad you made it in here near the end. Next on my list is Atlanta 42 Andre in Winder. Andre, you usually check in and out, but you're in with us this evening, so I'm going to go ahead and ask, how did you fare the storm? Did you get any weather your way? And were you prepared for it? And did you learn anything to prepare for the next one?
This is Atlanta 42 Andre in Winder. Yeah, we had about, say, maybe 1.5 inches of snow. But nothing too serious. Pretty well prepped with the generator and fuel and everything else. So not too many problems. One thing that I did want to suggest that is worth having is a small amount of cash, small denominations, both in your vehicles and at home, that you might need if something really happens. Atlanta 42, back to Ned.
Andre, that is a great point, and it's one that Julie and I talked about just this week. We don't operate on cash very much. We tend to use our debit cards for a lot of things, and so very often I don't have any cash that I carry on me. On a day-to-day basis, it's unlikely that I have any cash. But you make an excellent point. And something that I have begun to do is to keep us an envelope full of, $40 or $50 in my vehicle, with an assortment of denominations, so that if I'm low on fuel, if my debit card doesn't work, and if the networks go down, you might not be able to buy fuel with a debit card. So I think that's a smart idea. And you've hit on a bit of brilliance there, Andre, to have some cash. And, we've always kept a certain amount of cash here in the house, just in case we needed to pay somebody, a contractor, a serviceman or something like that. When people come and do work, small business people come and do work, I like to pay them in cash. I always pay my auto mechanic in cash because, I just try to treat small business that way. So I've always liked to have, cash on hand for those kind of things, but I don't carry it in my wallet. So that's a great point. We should have some on hand, and we should have some in our vehicles, just so that when we get into a bind, we have a way to get to it. So great points there, Andre. And like many of the members of the network, both on and off the air, I think that this group is far and above better prepared than the general population when things come about. So thank you for that. Glad you participated this evening, Andre. Looking forward to hearing more from you as we go. Atlanta 780 Houston in Powder Springs is in and out this evening. Hope all is well with you and Mona and look forward to catching up with you again soon. Next on my list is Atlanta 434, Ron, incoming. Ron, were you prepared for the weather that we had last week, and did you learn anything to prepare for the next one?
Yeah, Justin, actually, I'm pretty much well prepared for just about anything. I do run a prepper group, and we kind of practice and learn new things as we go along. So, yeah, I have plenty of food here, gas cans full, ready to go, generators. The only thing that I'll have to say that I'd like to be better prepared for is in the event that we do lose power for an extended period of time is how do you heat the home? I've got, a portable little heater here. It's electric. It would have to run on the generator. I have a fireplace. That's probably about it. It's not ideal in my eyes. I'd like to probably stock up on some other means of actually keeping warm in the event of that type of an emergency. But other than that, we were very well prepared for what little snow we did have, and we ended up actually having a little bit of fun out front and running some little toboggans down the hill in front of my house here with the little inch and a half of snow that we had. It was just fun to watch.
Did you post a video?
Yes, sir, I did. I shared a video of my wife and her friend going down the front hill in a little flat toboggan there. They had a lot of fun. It was a big giggle fest.
Oh, yeah, I saw that, and I chuckled at that. That looked like they were having a little too much fun. There's a place up in Indiana called Pokagon, and they have a frozen toboggan track. And I don't know, it's maybe a quarter mile, 1,200 feet-ish long. It's a lot of fun. But, the whole thing is that you stand in line, you walk up this hill, you're carrying your toboggan, you're in line for, 20 minutes. You get on your toboggan and you ride down this frozen toboggan track, and it's a heck of a lot of fun, but the ride's over in no time. And then you get off the ride and you go back and you get in line and you trudge back up the hill again. But it's worth it. It's just, it's a whole lot of waiting and standing in line for just a little bit of fun. But Pokagon State Park up there north of Fort Wayne, Indiana. It's almost into Michigan. Pretty neat thing. It's a lot like the Snow Hill at Stone Mountain, except it's a narrower track. I think there are 2 tracks that run parallel, so you've only got 2 people running at any given time, and so it's slow going. Whereas at Stone Mountain, I don't know how wide that path is, but they've got 10 or more tubes that run down that hill at any given time. But nonetheless, fun stuff. Brought back a lot of memories. Used to have a soapbox derby track in Fort Wayne. That was a lot of fun to ride an inner tube down, and sleds and toboggans and things like that. So they've removed that. No more soapbox derby stuff in Fort Wayne anymore. But a lot of memories on that hill. A lot of fun. So good stuff. Enjoyed the video, Ron, and appreciate that story. Next on my list is Atlanta 760. Tony. Tony is where is Tony? Let's see. Tony's. Oh, I can't say the name of that town. How do you say that? How do you say that city, Tony?
Comment.
All right, Jim, I'll come to you here in just a minute. Let's see if Atlanta 760 Tony is still on with us. Tony, did you stick around, or were you in and out? All right, not hearing anything from Tony. Jim, go ahead with your comment.
Just the other gentleman you were just talking to, learned if you want to look at for a heater in the house in the event of no power, they sell them on Amazon, they sell them other places too, but it's a diesel heater, 12 volt, 5 kW, and you can put them in a window real simply, just have a little gas can outside that has some diesel in it, and they will run and they will burn you out of a house. I mean, they're hot. They work really well, and you just need a small, little 12 volt battery, one of the ones like you put in a toy car or whatever, and they'll run for days on it. So just have him, I don't remember who it was, just have him look into it, but they work really well. I've had first-hand knowledge, and I know a lot of people that use them, especially that have mobile homes. So that's it. Thank you.
All right, Jim. Yeah, that's good stuff, and an alternative source of heat in an emergency. Back where I'm from, kerosene heaters were the go-to mode of heating in the event of a no-power situation. And there are a lot of Amish in the area where I'm from, and it seems like every year you would hear about an Amish home that would be engulfed in a fire, and invariably the source was because a kerosene heater got knocked over. That always made me very highly concerned about things like kerosene as a source of heat in a building, but used carefully and under the right circumstances, and if you had the emergency to justify it, certainly if you need heat, you need heat, and can be an effective source. So kerosene and diesel are very similar in their nature, and I can tell you those kerosene heaters absolutely would heat you right out of a room. Sometimes a single kerosene heater would be enough to heat an entire small home. So in a lot of cases that is what they used. So I imagine this diesel, if it's using a battery, is that battery for ignition or is it for forced air?
It has a fan, and like I said, the fuel you can keep outside, not inside the house, and it has a little remote control. You can turn it off, turn it on. There's a lot of different ones, but yeah, the batteries to help run the fan and keep the little pump running, pumps the diesel to it.
Interesting stuff. Have to look into that and understand that a little bit better. But so that is something to consider: is a diesel heater. Diesel fuel does carry a significant amount of energy, and I could see where that would be based on kerosene. They're very similar. I know what kerosene heaters can do, so I would imagine that diesel would be pretty toasty as well. So good stuff. Appreciate you bringing that to us, Jim. We're at a place now where we're just about to wrap things up, but before we do, let's see if we have any additional check-ins for North Georgia GMRS Network. Net Control standing by.
With the comment.
All right, there was a double in there, but I heard 1402 with a comment. Was there another station trying to check in?
Yes, sir. CW45 WROE 251, Rough Over Danielsville.
This is Atlanta 57 WQZC 882, Andrew in Holly Springs.
Justin, this is McDonough 22. I don't know if he's still in there or not, but about 30 minutes ago, Bruce McDonough 39 said he had a comment, but I don't know if he's still there or not.
All right, Tim. I've got McDonough 39 listed here in the comments section, so we'll see if he's still here with us. I did not hear that, so I appreciate you bringing that to light. So let me go ahead with the check-ins. We've got CW45 Ruff in Danielsville and Atlanta 57 Andrew in Holly Springs. Before I come to those guys, let me go ahead and get Todd's comment, 1402, out of the way. And then, Bruce, if you're listening, I'll come to you right after Todd. Atlanta 1402, go ahead with your comment.
Hey, Justin. First off, my apologies for missing when you shouted out for me. We were just wrapping up with dinner, but wanted to comment on the last station at the end of the net there about the diesel heater. Those are really, really popular in the off-road community. Super, super safe. You keep all the combustion material, everything outside of your vehicle, with some type of ducking into your car. And I actually have a friend of mine in my Forerunner group that has prototyped one, and is about to start manufacturing them, and they are absolutely incredible.
All right. Well, I'm super curious now, especially knowing that all the combustibles are outside. Can you send me some information? Maybe post a link or something about these heaters, Jim and Todd, and maybe this is something we should consider. It could be a good resource for many of us. So I'm curious now. I appreciate that, Todd. McDonough 39, Bruce in Stockbridge. Did you have a comment?
Justin, just real quick, and fortunately I didn't get to hear everything, so I hope I'm not repeating anything. But we didn't have a lot of snow and ice down here, or anything that stuck, but we had some winds, and I got in a situation where the power line was knocked down, but it pulled all the electrical contacts, including the power meter, off my house.
Oh.
And I guess the lesson learned was to have multiple contacts for like emergency contacts with electricians, plumbers, etc. I called the first one that I had on my list, and they told me they would be with me in 3 or 4 days. And so I had to scramble and find somebody at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it took me like a day and a half to get my power back up. So I would recommend updating emergency list and having some backups to that list as well. That was one of the lessons I learned this time.
Yes, and you know that's something that we certainly could face very easily, especially if the service to your home is overhead. One of the things that I've been wanting very much to do is get my utilities buried, so that if a tree comes down, it's not going to come down and knock out my lines as much as I can help it. Now, I can only bury it to the pole out at the edge of the property. From there, it's going to go overhead to the transformer that's on the other side of the street. I can't do anything about that, but I can do something about the utilities that are on my property, and that's just another thing that I need to get done to be better prepared for an event such as this. Yeah, and I'm aware. I recall a time when a neighbor had lines get pulled down from, I don't remember what it was from. Let me break real quick. I had a cough. That's better. And anyway, it pulled the service entrance off of the top of his meter box, and it damaged the meter box. And he was able to straighten up the conduit out of the meter box and get it reattached to the house where the service entrance was at. But because the meter box was warped and it was bent just a little bit, the power company would not turn him back on. And he had to actually have somebody come out and replace the meter base and the weatherhead where the cable entrance comes into the conduit and down and into the meter base. Had to have all of that replaced before the power company would turn him on. And so that, you know, it's not the kind of thing that I keep on hand. And that's the sort of thing that you need you need to be able to reach out to somebody and get those resources in the event of an emergency. So it's a good point there. Appreciate that, Bruce. Next on my list is CW45. And by the way, Bruce, no one had mentioned that, so that was brand new material. CW45 Rough in Danielsville. Rough, how did you weather the storm? Did you get much? And were you prepared for it? And did you learn anything for the next one?
Beautiful topic here, Justin, sure enough. Beautiful topic. And yeah, we learned a little bit. We were working actually all day Saturday getting the getting the other generator. I'd already had a generator for the camper, and that's our backup. And I got it. It's all works perfect. But I was going to try to put me one here at the house, and we spent about 2 or 3 hours riding around everywhere around lunchtime. I guess it was Saturday. Yep, I think it was. Trying to find the right breakers to get it, to where we could pipe it in from the outside. Got me a 220 generator, 30 amp that would run at least, a couple of the larger appliances in the house if you don't go crazy about it. And I want to comment, I guess it was Bruce on the update to emergency list. That's a good idea, too.
Yep.
Hey,
yep.
Only thing is, if you got to wait on a inspector to come up the side of a mountain or up on a hill, if you ain't got, nobody's got power within a couple of miles for 5 days, you got a problem anyway. But I really did enjoy that, and I enjoyed the report there on the diesel heater. I'm going to look that thing up there. That sounds good. Anyway, I hope I'm making it, Justin, and I appreciate you, as I always do. The CW45, back to net control.
Your station sounds fantastic, Rough, and yeah, those are great points. And yeah, we do need to make sure that our contact lists are kept up to date, and we can rely on the people that are on it. Yeah, and that seems to be the most common topic of the evening is generators, and some of us had good luck with them, some of us had a little bit of trouble. I didn't have any trouble with my generator because I don't have one. I'm 100% reliant on the good graces of Cobb EMC, and they've been good to me, but who knows how long that'll last. One of these days, I'm sure I'm going to pay the price for that. And, when that happens, there won't be any generators at Lowe's. They'll be sold out. Home Depot will be all wiped out. I won't be able to go buy one, so that's just the nature of it. So I guess I should probably, before there is an emergency, go get a generator so that I'm not that guy. But I appreciate that, Rough, and thank you for your comments. Atlanta 5-7, Andrew in Holly Springs. You're the tail gunner for the evening. How did you fare over there at Club 215?
Good evening, Justin, and everyone on the net. We did fine. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of snow or anything, and I'm pretty sure that was about synonymous with what you had down there, I would assume. But yeah, it was pretty much a non-event. We kind of flirted with a line of having some stuff, as most of us did. But yeah, we didn't end up with a whole lot of anything. Did prepare slightly. I made sure I got a bank of batteries that run all of the radios here, for GMRS and on the amateur side. I made sure all the batteries were, charged up and maintained just in case things went out. Also made sure in case the power goes out as well for cooking, since we actually have electric range here. Even though we have gas here, my wife won't have anything to do with a gas stove, and that's okay. But nonetheless, we've got a Blackstone griddle out here, and we made sure that we had the propane and all that just in case something were to happen. We were able to cook food and all that. And but we do have gas as far as the hot water and a gas fireplace. So we would have had heat, hot water, food, radio, and then fellowship with the family. So what else did we need if the power went out?
Very good stuff. Very good stuff. And yeah, the fellowship is an important aspect as well. There was joke the other day about somebody had to travel across the lake because they just bought a boat at one marina and they were going to have it live at another marina, and 16 miles across the lake. And somebody commented about the fish are cold, and so the joke was that if the fish are cold, if you're cold, they are too, and you should bring them inside. Yeah, obviously by catching them. And I don't know that any fishing took place that day, but I thought it was a great joke. And, you know, as I've said before, oftentimes jokes are humorous to me, and that's their purpose, is if I find them funny. It's not important to me whether other people find them funny. But that one got me. So in any case, good stuff, Andrew. Glad to know that you were prepared. And yes, the Blackstone is a fantastic alternative if the power goes out. I cook on, it's not a Blackstone, it is a Royal Gourmet, but it's the same thing. I love the griddle. Cook on it almost every day. And I just emptied a bottle of propane, so I'm down to 5 full ones. I'm going to have to deal with that. But this time of the year, I guess we've only got the one empty. That's a good thing. Good stuff, Andrew. Do we have any additional check-ins before we wrap up the net?
Atlanta 360, WRX 638. Chris in Atlanta. Very late to the net, but checking in.
Atlanta 360. Chris in Atlanta. I've got a good copy on you. Your carrier is nice and strong. Modulation's just a bit low, but that's okay. Chris, how did you fare the storm? Were you prepared for it? And did you learn anything to prepare for the next one?
Yeah, so we were pretty fortunate. A lot of times here inside the city, trees go down, wires go down. We did not lose power, knock on everything. But my plan is to put full backup power at the house, gas-powered backup. And in terms of radio, I've got plenty of battery backup for that for at least 2-3 days. So, comms-wise, we're not going to ever have an issue with that. But yeah, no, we were pretty fortunate in the whole thing. And down here in the city, it wasn't, it was fun and funny. It wasn't like it was for some folks up north.
Yes, indeed. Many of us thought that the doom and gloom nature of the forecasts were something to scoff at. My experience has been, the forecasts are 100% right and 100% wrong. Someplace, somewhere, somebody got a bunch of snow and had serious weather conditions. But it wasn't here, and many of us experienced relatively mild winter conditions. But it's too big of an area for any of us to ever listen to WSB and think that they're forecasting for my spot right here. They're not. Their forecast is a generalization of what they expect to happen over a very large region. And my experience with weather around here is that weather can be very different in Woodstock than it is in Canton, than it is in Holly Springs, than it is in Kennesaw, than it is in Ackworth. So that's been my experience, and based on that, to hear WSB TV give a forecast, they're going to be right somewhere. They're gonna nail it someplace, but they're going to miss it by a mile everywhere else, and I think that's going to be the case almost every day. Let me break. So excellent point, Chris, and glad to know that you made it through without any power failures, because that is one thing that we did see a lot of, were trees down. I didn't see any trees down because I didn't leave the property for 3 days. But I didn't need to leave the property. That was kind of the point. Nonetheless, we didn't have any outages here either, so of that nature. So I'm trusting that any trees that fell down in this area had minimal impact as far as utility goes. Let me break again. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap things up for us tonight. We had a total of 42 check-ins, including myself. Fantastic net, great conversation. I want to say thanks again to Atlanta 114 Yusuf for his story this evening about some of his ham radio activities. I just want to encourage everyone who has any interest at all in incorporating radio into other activities is to find a way to make it happen. You know, communications is a vital part of so many of the things that we do, and you know, if you want to engage in a separate hobby than radio, by all means do. But more than likely, there's a way that you can incorporate communications into that, and I just would encourage everyone to do that. A couple of things come from that. One, it gives you the opportunity to enjoy something, you know, beyond radio. Two, it gives you the opportunity to expand your skills in radio. Yusuf was engaged in application or activations on summits, on mountaintops, and you know, if you're going to set up a radio on a mountaintop, you have to carry that radio up that mountaintop. And so you need to be fit, you need to be capable, you need equipment that's capable and lightweight, and you know, so all these things come into play, and so everything about what he did becomes a challenge. And then, you know, to go and do those things and achieve and succeed at those things is its own reward. So thanks again to Yusuf for coming on tonight and talking to us about his Summits on the Air activations and his participation in that elite group that engages in those contests. So and you know, anybody has any questions about that or anything else we talked about tonight, Facebook is a great place to continue the conversation. So I would encourage anyone that wishes to engage there. This is Atlanta 946 WQIR 514. My name is Justin. We're going to return repeaters back to normal use. Everyone who signed out. Everyone who signed in to the net tonight should sign out. I'm going to go ahead and clear up. Thank you, everyone, for participating this evening. Atlanta 946. I'll be clear. All right, YouTube. Thank you so much for joining in this evening. It was great having you along, and very much enjoyed tonight's program. Look forward to next week. We may be having a guest net controller next week. Don't have a confirmation yet. There could be one in my email. I haven't seen it. If we have a guest net controller next week, most likely, well, whether we have a guest or not, most likely there will not be a live stream next week. So we'll be returning in 2 weeks with a live stream. And folks, I look forward to seeing all of you on the air very soon. WQIR 514, Atlanta 946. My name is Justin, and I'm clear.